out here in the perimeter, there are no stars. Out here, we is stoned, immaculate.
Hello and welcome. This is the C86 show. I'm David Eastaugh. As you know, we love a special guest. This week it's going to be the turn of the singer, guitarist, songwriter. It's the one and only Reid, who I spoke to very recently to find out more about life, love, poetry and all the other groovy stuff. One-time member of the Jaywalkers, Peter J and the Jaywalkers, who supported such people as the Rolling Stones and also Ike and Tina Turner, went on to be a very successful solo artist, releasing several amazing albums in the 70s titled River and Seed of Memory. But this is the interview with Terry. He was in LA, I wasn't. So, yes, anyway, this is all very exciting. So after several minutes of casual chat, we got down to that very exciting subject that was the early formative years. Terry, tell us everything now.
It's hell early, you know. I've been singing since I was little, you know, so I was sort of like a sponge with all that. I mean, there were so many things I liked, you know. I mean, I loved all the R&B groups, like the Four Tops with Levi and all that whole deal, you know, and the Temptations, and I loved all that, the whole R&B thing, and then Otis Redding and all those soul singers. I don't know, that just really got me.
Yes, and I know you're probably a little bit younger by a few years to David Bowie and also Lemmy from Motorhead, because they were born in the same year.
Oh yeah, Lemmy.
Because when they ever talked about their early influences, they both would say Little Richard, and then they'd say, you know, Buddy Holly, Eddie Cochran, Elvis Presley. I mean, did those artists kind of?
Well, yeah, but that's a bit. The whole thing of Buddy Holly and the whole thing, I think I sort of really, I'm a bit younger than that, you see, but I came through that with the Beatles doing those tunes and Little Richard, you know, with everybody doing his things, and then I mean, I loved Little Richard. I mean, that was great, and it was interesting because I never really got hip to Elvis, and because he never came to England, you know, we always. It was sort of a bit of a mystery to everybody, you know, when I was sort of growing up. He missed that whole thing. Even though everybody knew about Elvis, it was sort of like, I don't know, a bit of a mystery, you know. Yes. We'd not come in there, right?
It was a very strange thing not to do, actually. Cause,
it really was. It was. And then we had a lot of people, of course, with Billy Fury and Eden Kane, and a lot of those, like me and Peter J knows all of those guys. I miss knowing Billy Fury and all these really nice guys, and Eden Kane and all those. But
so did you come from a musical household? Did you have some sort of family member that kind of?
No, I didn't. I come from around Huntingdon way, right? You know, out that way, you know.
Yes.
And from a small village out there, you know, and nobody in the family was musical at all, really. Yeah. You know, other than singing in the shower, you know, it was about it.
When did you discover? When did the guitar come into your life?
Well, that was that was about when I was about 11 or 12. I started messing around with it. And then by the time I was about 13, I really got a handle on it. I saw you can accompany yourself, and because I was always I was singing and singing, and then I figured out that, you know, listening to records, you can't just strum the same thing you're singing. You know, you develop this way of having this independent. Well, in my head it was. I mean, I'd seen a lot of people that just play the same as what they're singing, and that doesn't work. You've got to have an independent rhythm going with the guitar as to what you're singing.
Yes.
And that really is the key of that whole deal. You listen to Eddie Cochran, you listen to Buddy Holly, or any of these things. If you listen to what they're playing, it's got nothing to do with what they're singing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the Beatles are just they're like all over that one. I mean, they got so many different rhythms, counterpoint going on. That's what makes the song work, right?
And did you, I mean, when you got to like 1963, which I know there's a poet called Philip Larkin that mentions the 60s start in 63 with the first Beatles album and Lady Chatterley's Lover. You were sort of about 14, 15 then, which is a perfect age.
Yeah.
Did you have that kind of youthful...
No, let me see, 63, I'd be like 12, 13. Yeah.
Right, so you were there. But then, you know, that would have been sort of the kind of cultural change of the 60s was really...
Oh, yeah, that's what really hit in England, you know. You probably know about what the whole thing was, which became very funny later on. But the whole thing was when you were at school, there was two camps, you know. You either a Beatles fan or a Rolling Stones fan, you know. I could never figure that out, being musical and that. I couldn't quite get behind that. That's more the identity crisis of guys at school, you know.
Yes.
Who are trying to impress girls, and they're trying to figure their own attitude out of what sort of music they're going to put on.
Yes. Well, music, I don't know what it's like now, because obviously we all kind of never know what the young people are doing. But when I was young, it was very tribal. So I guess you had that kind of those divisions. A bit later on, there was kind of like the rockers and the mods, and you know.
Yeah, you see that same thing when in a different way later on. First of all, it was the Beatles or the Stones, and the funny thing was with me, what happened is here I am at school, like 13, 14, and I'm dealing with all these people that are like Beatles or something. I love the Beatles. I mean, God, that taught me more than anything. And then I love the Rolling Stones because of their bare sort of honesty of how they play a song, you know. I mean, nobody does anything more honest than them.
Yes.
It's ridiculous. All those songs you listen to now just totally seem the same to me. They don't seem to change at all, you know.
So
when I was doing that, I got to the age of 15, and I joined Peter J. I went on the road, literally, like professionally. And the next thing I know, I'm on tour with Mick and Keith and Brian and everybody with the Stones. And it was very funny to me that it's all this thing, which camp are you in? And the next thing I know, I'm sitting there telling Keith about it, going, you know, this is really strange, you know. A few weeks ago, everybody was deciding whether they liked the Beatles or the Stones. And Keith's sitting there sort of going, yeah, I know what you mean. He says, oh, yeah, we're really good friends, you know. And I went, yeah, but you see, you've got to understand, nobody at school understood that part.
No.
As far as they're concerned, you all seem like you're enemies. They made enemies of you.
Yes, because
Which is really funny when you think about it. You know?
Absolutely, because how did you get your gig with Peter J and the Jaywalkers? Because he kind of, obviously we've mentioned, you know, he's in Yarmouth now, but he sort of was. I guess he formed his group when he was at Norwich College and played drums.
Oh, right, that's when he formed it, right? Okay.
Yes,
yeah.
And then he had the band, and then obviously, were you a bit of a hotshot kind of, you know, player on?
Well, everybody had their own amateur bands, which the scene was at that time. You come up through the ranks like you do with anything, and you play pubs and you play here and you play there and you do gigs for, you know, a bit of change and a bit of money. And around our area, in the area wherever you are, there's a place around there called Ramsey Gaiety, right? I'll never forget that. And all the main groups would come through there, right? The Hollies, whoever would play in that area, right? So usually they'd have a band of that area as a support band. You'd always, you know, you'd have support. So we got to support all these, you know, great groups. Right? The group called the Red Beats that we had, our amateur band, right? Yeah. And that's the first band we were in. And we were doing good, and we were having a lot of fun and supporting these different groups. And then we did, I think it was there, or it was Boston Glidodrome, or somewhere strange like that, where everybody's roller skating around, you know?
Yeah.
And we did this gig with Peter J, and Peter, it sort of, you know, pricked his ears up, and he went and talked to my dad, and said, would I, you know, be interested in joining his group, right? Yes. Which was Right? It was like I was 15. I was still at school, really. You know?
Yes.
So, he said, well, it will mean leaving home and everything, right? And so my dad said, well, as long as my missus can handle it, it will be all right.
God.
My dad was always really supportive of me. I mean, he's a car dealer, and he not only bought the van, he's a lot of the gigs, he'd drive it. At the beginning,
Yes.
and keep his eye on everybody as we were going along. So I couldn't thank him more, I mean, he was always very supportive of me. That's what I was obviously heading to do, was going to be in this music business, whatever that was, because at that point, you don't really know where anything's going, right? Because everybody seemed to be in a group and everybody's giving it a try. So you don't really know where these things, what will happen. You just get out there and do your best.
Were you still playing your first guitar when you were sort of being introduced to Peter?
Well, yeah. The thing was, if you learn, the first guitar I had was not too clever, right? And I realise now, after all these years, after tearing guitars apart and rebuilding them and designing them myself, I realised why it wasn't that good, and it still wouldn't be good now. But then there was one guitar I had my eye on, a Gretsch, and with a box amp, which is, of course, was just like George's, right?
Yes.
And I thought, well, God, that thing sounds really great. Not that when I got it, it was going to sound the same, but I thought, well, that's a good start. So I thought, well, if I learn to play a lot of songs well enough, my dad was, because I hadn't got a job at the time, I was still at school, My father said, well, if you learn to play that other thing, he said, then we'll invest in a good guitar.
Fantastic.
So I pulled it off.
And did you?
I still have that Gretsch Tennessean now.
Amazing. Did you have guitar lessons, or were you sort of particularly good at sort of following kind of records?
I was sort of self-taught, really. I play by ear with all of it, with singing and everything. But what happened was we had a really good friend, Eddie, that my dad knew, who played in a local dance band, like with an accordion and a band, and him and a drummer, right? And they played all the places around, all the popular tunes, everything from jazz and whatever. And he was a really good guitar player. He reads really well. And I could see him now. I mean, he played this beautiful one-pickup Guild guitar, which Eddie polished it and cleaned it every time he'd play it. And he was great. And so my dad said, well, look, maybe some lessons are in order, to learn music and all this. So he gets him to come over. We have a few nights. And I'm looking at trying to figure out what this music is all about. And we're playing different jazz tunes. He's showing me different chords and that, which is really interesting. So I'm getting the chords, but I hadn't really I'm very impatient at reading the music, right? And as we're going along, he said, you play those Beatles songs, Terry. And I said, yeah, I know quite a few. And he goes, well, in this one here, what are the chords on that? I said, it goes like this. So I showed him the song. And he went, oh. So my dad walks in while I'm showing him and says, oh, well, there'll be no more charge for lessons then. He suddenly went, you're here to teach him, not him to show you, But don't get me wrong, I'm not being, boastful about this. It's just that me and Eddie started to swap ideas. So we got a deal going, whereas he'd teach me chords that I did not know.
Yeah.
And I'd show him Beatles songs, right?
Yeah.
Which he would go to his own gig, and of course, it worked. That's what everybody wanted to hear. So you think about it, it's one hand sort of, washes the other one, Yeah. And I learned, and now when I look back, there were so many chords that he showed me, and later on, you have an instant recall when you play guitar. There are things you'll be playing along with the song, and you'll and you'll work out a chord by fingering, and you'll go, how do I know that chord? And a lot of them are from what Eddie showed me. You know?
It's kind of interesting because actually, I suppose I remember doing an interview with this Eddie Clarke, who was in Motorhead. But before Motorhead, he was in a band called Curtis Knight, and it was just one of those bands that you just played.
Right.
Or played all the time, and that's kind of where he learned, really learned to be both a musician and a guitarist. So kind of doing those hours and doing those gigs, I suppose it's a bit like the Beatles in Hamburg and the Cavern Club.
Right.
It does kind of add, doesn't it, to the apprenticeship, I suppose, of being a musician.
Yeah, it does. The more you work at a tune, I mean, there's two ways of working a song. I always think is that's what you got to be careful of recording wise. There's the first time you play the song. I mean, you learn the song, and say you go to record it, right? There's the first time you play it that you figure you've got a handle on it. That's a real take. Mm-hmm. Then there's the one that when you really work it and you do it more and more, and you got to be real careful of playing it too much, right? That you don't over elaborate the song. The discipline is to keep it as simple as the first time you did it, right? But tighten out what you have originally up. Just tighten it up. Not to just keep putting more and more stuff in, I mean, a lot of the stuff I love what's going on now. There's a lot of great groups right now. Like Bruno Mars is unbelievable. I listen to these things that he's doing. He's like another Michael Jackson. I mean, he's just genius at the stuff he's doing, right, musically. But a lot of it's finesse of how you do something. You've still got to keep it loose so it's natural. Otherwise, people don't feel that they are part of it. You know what I mean? You've got too many things going on, and a lot of the things you hear are like so elaborated. You start to wonder what the song was that you were listening to.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess, you probably watched it. Did you watch the Beatles documentary, only 8 hours, of Let It Be?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was, I know. That was actually, it was sort of heartbreaking at one point,
Yes, it was. Because I didn't realise, unlike a lot of things, you think, like the Titanic, it's going to sink and it's going to be sad. Whereas them, you kind of expect it to end badly, but actually they got on better as the film.
Yeah, you know what? That's the first time, because I think what it is, the public have their own image and their own ideas of what the Beatles are up to and what they're doing. And the stories just abound, there were so many things. They built an image other than the people that they're talking about. And that movie straightened everything out, that they're regular working class heroes,
Yes, I know.
Regular guys, just like everybody else, right?
And they just seemed, after having their little issues with, I suppose, dynamics, and there was a bit with George. But after that was sorted and they were making the record.
When George said, I'm leaving the band, it was like, you could see how it was sort of like, well, hang on a minute. We've done this how many years now? Because, it's a hell of a marriage. God, it was going on for quite a few years.
Yes.
And George was, okay, well, here's the song, I'll write the song. Okay, so, George, you figure out a guitar part thing. It was that kind of thing. And it was sort of, George, well, hang on a minute, I got a few songs, Can't I get in there? And he was sort of tactful how he said it in the beginning, but in the end, the only way to do it was say, well, do the bugger yourself then.
Yes. But it was just,
it
was kind of heartbreaking because in a way, it just felt like they just needed to book, 30 dates at the Royal Albert Hall and just, because they just wanted a gig. They had some terrible ideas about doing shows on cruises. I
know. You could see every time they mentioned the gig, no, I don't think that's the thing. I don't think we should do that. I don't think. Yeah, exactly. Well, they didn't have Brian Epstein. You see, Brian Epstein would tell them, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. So get that together, and this is when the gig is, and we'll get it there, and we'll organise it, and everything. But
yes.
There wasn't anybody. They were all telling each other what to do. So that's the kiss of death when you get that. Because not any two people are going to agree.
Yeah.
Right?
You needed.
Everybody got their own sort of agenda going on.
I thought it was a bit like
It was very. I thought it was a fabulous thing how it was finally all put together.
Yes, and I think
they kept some respect for the thing instead of it getting out. Because I hate it when they just talk about the bad times after all the good things they've done.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would have been awful.
And
really.
also, I love the fact that they did that. That someone put a microphone in the pot where they were having.
Oh yeah, and for years they could never hear what they were saying. It was in the flowers on the table.
I know. I mean, they must have been.
They with digital technology now, they pulled it forward and analysed it and scoped it and everything.
Yes.
And then they could figure out what they were saying. I thought that was just unbelievable.
I know.
Fascinating.
Paul must have been really freaked out, going, "My God, I vaguely."
I wonder, what did we say?
No, Jesus, I know it must have been very revealing. But when you suddenly from 15, suddenly leaving school, being on tour, and then being supporting the Rolling Stones and Ike and Tina Turner and the Yardbirds. I mean, was that? How? You must have had to, when you see a 15-year-old now, I know when we're 15 we think we're grown up, but then you see a 15-year-old and you think, blimey, you're not even shaving, mate.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of things you're not doing right at that point.
No, you just, basically you've just stopped playing with, not
well,
your...
The thing is that what hits you is that it's all well and good, sitting at home watching it all on TV and giggling when there's a riot going on and there's all these people running for their lives and everything. And everybody's got a big giggle and thinks it's real funny. And then all of a sudden, what happened to me was I'm giggling away watching TV with the Beatles and the Stones and all these riots and these. Then next week, I'm on at the Albert Hall and we're doing this gig and there's a riot.
Yes.
Now, I thought when we were doing the tour, and I had high expectations as anyone would. Oh, they're going to hear me singing, and I hope they like it, and I got to get this phrase right in the song, and I'm going to really get my stuff together here. I'm going to really get, the lights went up. I didn't hear them mention my name. They said it apparently, but the lights went up, and the din, the screaming is so loud, but it's continuous. It doesn't stop. It keeps going the whole way through the song. So what happens is you never hear anything that you're doing. Because them are the days, they're not where we had monitor systems and big speakers. I mean, the Stones had like speakers, what they call side bills, things on the side of the stage pointing inwards. Otherwise, you'd never hear anything, right? That was it. But the screaming was so loud, you didn't hear anything. So at first, I went in shock, like, well, I thought this was a musical gig. I got all these plans of how I'm going to get this song right, and one night I'm going to do this, and then next every night, bloody screw. And that night there was such a riot they closed the show.
Amazing.
The Stones only did 3 songs, and everything went black. All these girls came over from the back. After that gig, they never had anybody sitting behind the organ at the Albert Hall. It's too dangerous because you get a riot, they come straight over the back.
Yes, it
was dangerous.
And you were only being 17 with standing there. Was it? And this was
15. I was 15 on that one. That was 1965.
Right. I mean, and how did you start to sort of navigate it? Because obviously you must feel like, oh, this is kind of normal, but it's not really normal, is it?
Well, the first thing you do is get out underneath all these girls screaming, coming out over the top of you, and head for some exit, those little box. At the Albert Hall, they got these little steps for the orchestra. That all the people come up from the dressing rooms on this. I think there's 3 or 4 across the stage. These little steps and 2 little doors. Right? We all took a dive going like that. I went down. I mean, Brian Jones was in front of me. I was diving behind him. I think Bill Wyman was behind me. We just dived down these little steps, right, to get out because it's dangerous.
Yes, and with the band, Peter and the Jaywalkers, did you ever go into the studio to do any, recording?
Yes, we did. Yeah, no, we recorded. There's some things that are on an extended thing that EMI put out of me, right? And he put out the things that I did later on and earlier things, and we did a bunch of recordings at Abbey Road.
Right. And
yeah,
that must have been quite amazing. And that
was insane going down there. You know, I went in there quite a few times, and I really that studio really does have a sound. When I listen to the things, there's a room character about not only the good equipment, which isn't there anymore, but just that room. The A and B just have a character, especially be the big room. You know,
yes.
There's a real character about the room, the sound. It's just fantastic. Capitol Records is similar that way here in the States. You know, it's I've recorded in there and sung in that room, and it's just different places. I think what it was is when they built those studios, they really did get the sound acoustic technology. They really got it right.
Yes.
You know, they really planned it really well, right? Now, when they build studios, they don't build them based upon acoustic value in the studio itself. You know.
Yes. So
it seems to me, a lot of the ones I've been in newer just don't have acoustic, really true acoustic value or anything that's characteristic of the place.
Yes.
Right?
So did you record? Yeah. Was it the hand? The hand don't fit
the glove. That's right. Yeah.
That's the one which
that
is
was at Abbey Road,
and that was with John Burgess was the producer.
That's right, John Burgess, John Martin and John Burgess, right, that's right. And that was with Johnny Harris's orchestra.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
With Big Jim Sullivan on guitar. I mean, that day I walked in, they said, come in, we're going to do a couple of tracks, and I went in. It's funny you brought that up, you got me going now. I went in there, and it was in, I think it's B, the big room at Abbey Road, right? It's not A is the one upstairs, right? Yeah. So, there's a big stairs against the wall there, right? So, anyway, I turned up, and they said, well, go on in. Yeah, they're waiting for you. I said, okay. Right. So I'll go in the door, and I walk in, and hi, guys, there's the whole orchestra in there. I go, oh, I must be in the wrong bloody room. So I walk out, and I walk down the corridor to where the booth is. There's a corridor with the glass between you and the studio. And I walk down there to where some people are sitting. They're going, come on. I go in there, and they said, well, go on, let's get started. And I went, what do you mean? He said, well, that's your orchestra. I said, Johnny Harris and the whole... because they're all on charts, you see. So It's not like you'll do run-throughs, but you're not going to, it's rehearsals. I had no clue that's what was going to come down. I didn't know I had a full band orchestra. I mean, I was just blown away. Now, if ever you're going to get nervous, I don't care how old you are, that will be the time.
Yes.
That would definitely make you, we better get this right, you know. So I just couldn't believe it. And they all started. The thing is, he did the intro of the song, and I started laughing. I went, "Whoa, this is just the real deal," you know. I mean, I thought Tom Jones was going to run out.
Yes, absolutely.
That was that whole same orchestra. They did all those. It's Not Unusual, and all those great Tom Jones songs, you know.
Amazing. Because as the 60s, was trucking on with great enthusiasm, and my God, so much changed. I mean, by 66, 67, it's kind of termed as the summer of love.
Totally different thing.
So the Summer of Love, in San Francisco, they had something in January, which was the gathering of the tribes with people like, the Grateful Dead and Jefferson Airplane and Allen Ginsberg. But then in the UK in July, I think it's July, in 69, they had the 14-hour Technicolor Dream at the Ali Pali with Pink Floyd and Arthur Brown and Yoko Ono. Did you also, as that kind of cultural change started, because you were at the sort of that age, did you sort of also kind of go with that sort of change?
Yeah, right in the middle.
Right.
Yeah. The funny thing, but the one definitive thing that started to happen was that everybody was changing, right? Eric Clapton, right now, he's not in John Mayall's band. And all of a sudden he got that group Cream
Yes.
with Ginger Baker, who I knew from Graham Bond's organisation, which was a whole other kind of thing. That was like an R&B thing with Dick Extra-Smith and Jack Bruce, right?
Yeah.
Ginger and Jack, and he took Jack and Ginger and performed Cream. Totally different thing. Now we're talking a whole other ball game, and Steve Winwood left Spencer Davis and formed Traffic.
Yes.
With Dave Mason and Jim Capaldi and that. So I knew all these guys, and I see all this melting pot going on, and I'm hearing all this stuff from America, and I'm hanging out with Donovan a lot, who was totally plugged into all of this from the songwriting point of view and everything. And I'm looking at all of this going, this is a totally different deal, right? And I'm going to have to rethink of what songs I'm writing, and suddenly I started sort of drifting, writing songs in a total different way, in a different direction, you know?
Yes.
And it got really good. And then Eric asked me to, with the Cream, they were just finishing off their whole deal by 1978, right?
Yeah.
They did the farewell tour, and he invited me to go on the tour in America. Now, once I got over here, and then I met the airplane in San Francisco and started hanging out with that. Look out, here we go. Everything went haywire. I saw what it was that was going on, you know.
Yeah. I mean, was it hard? I mean, because, you know, I wasn't there. I was about 4 at the time. But, you know, like generally, there's a bit of alcohol, there's a little bit of a smoking, and then there's the sort of the whole kind of trip experience, you know, Timothy Leary's kind of tune in, turn on, drop out.
Oh, yeah, no, I knew Tim. I know all these people. But the thing is that there was a whole thing that went down, that all those people, Timmy and Owsley, and were working, they were at Berkeley University, and they were working in a legitimate scientific chemistry laboratories. That's what they were studying, is chemistry.
Yeah.
And they were studying actually an inside project on this thing called lysergic dithylamide, which
yes.
they were using in experimentation things. It wasn't hush hush. It was just within mental institutions. People that had breakdowns and bad identity, mental situations to help with all sorts of insanity, which quite frankly at this time, even from the time of Freud, they don't really know anything about the workings of the mind. So all of this was totally experimental. But the trouble was with it got out into the street in some bad ways, these chemicals. And Timmy and Owsley, they kept it inside. Right? Yeah. They were not letting all this get out to the public because it was not safe, just like that. But there's certain people who I can't really sort of say on the exactly who, but, you know, some silly buggers, to put it that way, you know, who got a hold of it, right, got it in the streets and started, you know, dosing people with it which should never happen. So that all went haywire with the government. Then the government sort of started to, you know, go haywire. And Owsley and them said, look, this was supposed to be in a top secret sort of venture. Now you've gone and given it out to people, right? That's, you know, we're not working for the labs anymore. That's where the thing of dropping out came. They dropped out of the whole Berkeley situation.
Yes.
And these are people that have got masters and doctors and, you know, very, very, very smart people, right?
Yeah.
So they just went out and they said, okay, well, if you're going to give it, we're going to turn the city on. So they started giving it to all their friends and had these parties, these acid parties. Right?
Oh, the Grateful Dead.
That was, free fall there. So then it really went nuts. It got around all over the world. It got to England and got to Cambridge University and all over the place. And that's really the truth of what really happened, because I spent a lot of time, and well, I still talk to Jack Cassidy and the Airplane and a lot of them guys who were very, very dear friends to me. I mean, when I would come to America, we say in England, they took me under their wing, as you might say.
Yes, I guess
and they looked after me and took care. I stayed with them, and they made sure that everything was okay, and was the equipment okay for the gig, because I was doing the Fillmore,
right,
for Bill Graham, right, and it was all moving real quick, but they make sure I had the right amps, and they check on me all the time, and if you got the right hotel, and they are the ones that set me up staying at the Altamira in Sausalito, which is beautiful. God, now you can't even, I think you have to book a room a year ahead there now. It's right in the other side of the bay in San Francisco.
Right.
Just gorgeous. So they'd set me up all the time, and I did quite a few gigs with them and the Dead, right?
Right.
And amazing people, but then when they came to England, we had a funny thing happen. You'd love this one. Is they'd done so much for me. They turned up in England to do, I think it was Hyde Park, right? And the Airplane, right? So they got there, and somebody, when all their gear turned up on freight, somebody left it at the airport as it came through customs, and he didn't cover it. And you know what our rain will do to anything.
Yes.
Well, a whole stack of Fender amplifiers, it'll do a right number on them. They got soaked, ruined, the whole lot.
Yes.
That's it. All their gear was just soaked. So I get this phone call up in Cambridgeshire, where I live, and it's Jack Cassidy and Yoma freaking out, going, Terry, God, we don't know what to do. We'll pay you anything you want monetarily, anything. We'll pay you anything. You're the only ones we know in England. I'm the only band that had a full complement of Super Showman reverb Fenders and twin reverbs and all this Fender gear. And he said, if there's any way that you could get that down to London, we'll pay for everything. We'll forever be in your debt. So my dad sort of turned around and went, well, they've always been good to you. Get the lorry out. We loaded all the Fender gear, right, all of it, and a bunch of Sound Cities and things, and took it all to London, and they were able to do the Hyde Park gig.
Right. God, that's amazing.
I love that, because my dad was right on it, even though these are all like acid casualties. My dad had called them. My dad says, look, I don't care what they're doing. They've been very good to you, and we've got to take care of them. So, and Jack Cassidy still to this day will go on about that, about my dad.
Fantastic. So what made you?
That was the sort of. Sometimes you get that camaraderie going. With English groups, you used to get that a lot, Yeah. One group would help another one out, and I always felt real good about that when you did help somebody. You know what I mean?
It's a good, it's a
good feeling to do that.
It's very calming.
And you don't want anything for it, because it'd be too expensive to pay back for it, right?
Yes, absolutely.
We'll
and
take the thing out of it.
But
they're lovely people. I tell you, Jack Cassidy, salt of the earth.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, sort of 67 time, you become a solo artist. Was that a big decision to? What was the reason for the change between being in the band and then going solo?
Well, solo. It wasn't necessarily. I put another band together. What it was is that I had a breakup with Mickie Most as a producer, right? The thing you were just talking about when everything changed, and I said like the Cream and Steve went with put Traffic together, and hanging out with all that gang, I saw how, wow, this is a lot freer, and we're not making singles anymore, like a pop record that's, what's the single off the album, and that, or the single comes out first. We're not doing that now. Now you can actually get a thread of continuity of your music whether it be a ballad or it goes into something else. You can do a different, which you could call a concept album.
Yes.
That's what they started calling it. I don't know what that really meant. Because most of the people who did them didn't have a clue, right? But you could record something in a continuous thing. There were some great albums like Sailor, what's his name from San Francisco. I'll think of it in a minute. There's some great concept albums like that, and you think of Traffic's albums too. So I love the idea of all that. That just I was more. You could write different kinds of songs. I never liked to be put in one pigeonhole, one kind of style. It's nice to try all different things out.
Yes.
Steve Miller. That's who I was thinking of with Sailor, right?
Right.
And a lot of you listen to them now. A lot of those albums stand up real well. There were some really good ones,
Yes.
So I moved into that, and I had a big war with Mickie Most. He wanted to do just something totally different, and I don't know. We just didn't agree on things. So I split, and I put my own group together and started doing something different.
Yes.
And then we put an amazing group together that was part from America and part England. It was me and Alan White, God bless, we just lost last week. Right?
Yes, I know.
And Lee Miles. It was Lee Miles and I, who was from Mike and Tina Turner. So I finally got an R&B bass player that really, was the real deal. Well, unbelievable. He'd pound you to death, right? He was unbelievable. And then Alan as well, and then David Lindley flew over, who could play every instrument you could think of. So we had all that freedom to do any kind of music we wanted to do. And we had a lot of fun doing it, right, for quite a while,
Yeah, and this is the album Bang Bang.
Yeah, that's before.
Right.
Bang Bang was the first band that I put together with Keith Webb and Peter Solly.
Yes.
Yeah. That was with Mickie Most, yeah.
Yes, I know, because
we did 2 albums there with that. Then the one I was just talking about, we didn't get to do an album totally. It was bits and pieces on an album called River, right?
I know it well.
Later on.
Yes, that's the one. Because there's the classic, famous Glastonbury Festival, isn't there? Which was directed by...
right.
Which is the one where you have this amazing jam, which then features Linda Lewis. So is this the 72 Glastonbury Fair?
Yeah, 71, I think, yeah.
71. Oh, I wonder if it's the one
that was the first one.
That's the first one, which I'm not sure if that's the one. It features people like Gong, Arthur Brown, Melanie, isn't it? That's the one, isn't it?
That's it. You got it, yeah. And David Bowie. Reading poetry and playing 12-string.
At 4 o'clock on...
most of the day, I spent a lot of the day just hanging out with David. Because I'd met David a few times and that, and he was a lovely guy, absolute sweetheart. You could sit and talk to David. You'd start a conversation about next to nothing, and then 2 hours later, you're still talking about, who knows where we're going now. I mean, he's the most interesting guy.
Yes.
So... between him and Steve Winwood, because Traffic did it too, see?
Yeah, right. Yes, absolutely. So during that period, because I know there was also, the art world was exploding, performance art was quite the thing, wasn't there? I mean, were you getting, because obviously the late 60s, things have got very excitable, haven't they? And sort of a bit weird as well, because obviously they'd also...
Tell me about it. Yeah,
yes, because there was a little bit of the kind of, like any party, that kind of starts well and then it's a bit strange and then it ends not so great. And obviously, there was the death of Jimi Hendrix and Jim.
I love it. I love how you put it. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, everything got a little, wait a minute, they're starting to dance really strange here.
Yes, I know.
What's going on, right?
But how did you cope, kind of, because you were at that age where suddenly, Jimi Hendrix dies, Jim Morrison, Janis Joplin, Brian Jones the year before. Then you had Altamont, and then you had the, Charles Manson. So, the drugs and things had slightly turned a dark side into a horrendous side, really. I mean,
I know. Well, it was awful. You see, I knew Jimi Hendrix real well just before he hit, and we were really good friends through that as well. And like you say, Janis Joplin I knew really well too, and I didn't know Manson. You know, even if I did, I might say I didn't. But you know, no, that was wicked. But I know everybody that was around that time. You know, living here all these years, you hear people say, "Yeah, well, he came around my house one day, and I thought this guy's a little dodgy. I don't know about this guy. He's out there, you know." And looking back on it, yeah, you're not kidding. Right?
Well, I always remember Neil Young said a very kind of vaguely funny thing in a slightly dark way. But he said, because Charles Manson was a sort of a singer-songwriter, wasn't he? Who was desperately trying to get his music promoted, and then Neil Young said he took rejection really badly. yeah, like Hitler did with his painting. Yeah, right. Yeah. It was a bit like, it was a little bit. You know, there's one thing getting rejected.
It's sort
as well.
of like, we're not. You're not going to college anymore, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
So,
you did right there. He took rejection really badly. Yeah. In other words, he ain't got a freaking clue.
No, it was a bit awful actually. So
I know. I mean, that's what happens, which is very similar to Hitler actually. Is that, you know, okay, so they think they're good at it, but they'll go, "I'll prove to them I'm good."
Yes, because what's quite interesting, because with David, you know, Bowie, I mean, who I think, you know, I absolutely love, but his 60s work is kind of quite hit and miss, isn't it? You know, he plays with R&B, he plays with folk stuff, he's got a sort of an image which is neither one thing or the other.
All that time he was trying to find his niche.
Yes.
You know, he wasn't quite. He always said to me too. He said, "I'm not quite sure how I fit in."
Yes.
I said, "Well, you know where you fit in. You're in." I said, "Everybody considers that you're in." I said, "You're the art representation of rock and roll." That's what I always called David. I said, "You're the art representation. You represent the art of rock and roll and music from England." Because you think about it, he wasn't straight ahead R&B or rock and roll or anything. It was all very artsy, clever stuff. It wasn't jazz, right?
No.
It became its own thing, you know. I mean, to write songs and that, he had this thing of cutting out things from the newspaper and putting them on the floor and moving all the words around, right?
Yes, and
which I thought was. I tried doing it. I didn't get anywhere with that. It didn't work for me. It just was a bunch of nonsensical bloody rubbish. But it really worked for him.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it was just kind of interesting, that transformation. But then you also went from that kind of 60s period into the 70s, where there's a new group of 16 to 18-year-olds who suddenly the musical landscape changes, and you're sort of playing at Glastonbury Festival. And obviously, you know, it's captured magically on that film. You know, everybody watches it and is amazing. So had you known Linda?
We're there again in a couple of weeks.
I do.
Right?
I saw it there, and it's changed.
I know it's going to be a trip. We're not on the pyramid stage. It doesn't matter, but it'll be really interesting to go back again. You know, and they were trying to do the 50th year, but COVID obviously, you know, you weren't allowed to do anything. So, but this is basically the 50th anniversary, as far as I'm concerned, the 52nd.
And can you remember, I mean, you mentioned being with David that day, but can you remember much about the performance and the general vibe? Because it does look like a very loved-up experience, doesn't it?
Well, it was. Well, the first of all, our thing was... I still joke about it. I mean, now you can talk about it a bit easier because... you know, all the thing of smoking a joint isn't a big deal these days.
I think.
I mean, it's still not legal in England, I know, but you know, I mean, it was very touchy at the time.
But yes, but I can see.
All of us, like everybody that went to Glastonbury, the whole idea was you could go there and do what you wanted in a field. I thought that was the idea of a festival in the first place. You could do what your dad wouldn't let you do or something, you know. Right?
That's right, absolutely.
Yeah, so everybody was there doing all sorts of stuff, right? So we go on stage, and there was a big joint that we'd rolled.
Yes,
we were gonna smoke this before we went on. And if you look at when you watch the movie they came out with, right, it looks like some bloody drug ad, you know. I'm out there playing in the front, starting the song off, but what was supposed to happen was we were supposed to pass the joint around a couple of times, then go on and play. Well, the guy goes, come on, we're late, come on, go on. So I start playing. Alan's got the joint. He's smoking away. He's going, yeah, it's a good groove, yeah. He's listening to me, and, yeah, he ain't playing anything, yeah, right? And he's just sitting there with the joint. He takes another, then he passes it to Lee. And I keep turning around and going, well, where's it going, right? And then it went there. Then Lee passed it to somebody on the side of the stage. It never came back round to me. I'm playing, going, oh, well, that's the end of that, right? Okay. So off we went, and then we did the set. But it's really funny, you know.
It is a classic of its moment because, people are fiddling with wires and they're sort of getting set up.
Oh, yeah, I mean, nothing was working right, It's just like, get on with it, I mean, every first festival I've ever done, if anything all went perfectly right, I think I would get very nervous.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, I know it sounds a little pompous, but if this sort of stuff crackling a bit and not going exactly right, there's a comfortability about that. I don't know if that makes sense. As long as it don't blow up, right? But as long as it's somewhat working.
Yes, because I think...
Because at a festival, you never get a run-through or a sound check at all. You never get that. Because it's one after another, and it wastes too much time, see?
So what happens to... Because Lee is the guy, Miles, isn't he, on bass?
Yeah.
So where did you find... Because he's absolutely got the groove with Alan.
Oh, man, no, he's on fire. He still is. He's no worse now than he was then.
Right.
No, I talk to him all the time, man. He's a full-fledged brother, I tell you. I've known him all my life, But first time I saw him, you see, I did the first tour I did, that one we were talking about with the Stones, right, when I was 15, is with Ike and Tina Turner Review, which is a whole load of people. It's got to be 26, 27 people in that whole entourage, right?
Yeah.
And it's just... Well, he had a guy, Junior, Ike's cousin, I think his nephew. No, it was Ike Turner's nephew was playing bass. And he was this young guy, I think he was only about 19, 20. And he was just killer, this young guy playing bass. I went, man, I'd give anybody to have anything to get a bass player in my band like that. Well, they came, after that tour, a couple of years later, they came back to England to do... some gigs in England. I think they did the Albert Hall and a couple of things. And they played a club called the Revolution Club. The friend of mine, Jim Carter, Fay run, right? Yeah. He had the Speakeasy and all them clubs, right? And Blazes and things. So Jim called me and says, I just got a call from Ike Turner, and he wants you to do the gig with him here at the Revolution Club next week. I mean, I said, what, next week? It was like a last call thing.
Yes.
And they wanted a group to be a support for the night. And they go, get Terry. You want Terry? So it's like I went, it's funny how, I mean, I thought they forgot all about me. So, I was just honored to be on the tour with them in the first place, right? But they're such sweet people. I mean, I've known them all my life, so... They get me down there, and we were having a ball. Before the gig started, we started at 1 in the afternoon, and they were doing sound checks, and then we were going over all what happened in '65 with the Stones, and going on and on and on, just having a party.
Yes.
And then we turned around and went, oh, we're going to do the gig. So they got up and played, and there's this bass player playing with them called Lee Miles, and I took one look and listen, and my jaw dropped. I went, oh, my God, this guy is unbelievable. This is like another cat, right, who's just amazing. So I talked to him afterwards and everything, and we get on. We're the same age and that, so we get on real good. And then later on, they were in London, and I asked him, I said, look, if you ever feel like, you don't want to play with Ike, are you locked into playing with Ike? I said, I'm putting this band together. I would love to, man, you'd be it. We could put our own group together. And he said, let me think about that. So next thing he gave me a call, and he left Ike Tina. He left them.
Wow.
Which is not easy to do, because it's that, you know, Ike didn't like the idea, you know. Funnily enough, just before that, Ike had asked me if I would be interested in joining his review.
Nice.
On guitar and singing. Which sounded totally strange to me. He wanted an English guy in his band, but, you know, it's a big band, that whole thing, but it meant touring all over the state. I don't know. That Greyhound bus tour sort of scared me a little, you know.
Yes.
All that. So Lee ended up picking up, quitting, and came to England and lived with me for 4 years, you know.
God, that's amazing. And when did
it was, like you said, it was just the root of this whole conversation is things were really changing, you know.
Yeah.
Everybody was kicking it up a notch, spreading out a bit, being a lot more worldly and listening. I always listen to jazz. I mean, I always love my jazz. I got from Coltrane to Miles Davis to Dizzy Gillespie. I was always steeped into that.
Yes.
You know, all different kinds of jazz. Yeah, from the beginning, that's what I really love. And Jimmy McGriff and Richard Groove Holmes and Jimmy Smith and all that. That's where I really sort of love the stuff I loved early when I was like 13 and 14, right?
Nice.
I have a big jazz collection right back then. And I didn't think much of it until I started hanging out with a lot like Steve Winwood and a lot of people and realizing they got all the same records.
Amazing.
You know?
Yes, absolutely.
And when have this one? Oh, you've got to get this one, right?
Well, and when did you sort of talk to Linda or Lewis to be kind of guesting on vocals on that particular?
Did not. It was a total. You see, that's what everybody says. Well, how did you plan that with Linda? Did not. Linda was there, got excited, and everybody had had a couple of whatever they fancied, you know, and that could mean anything.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what she took, but anyway, we still laugh about it. I just got an email, funnily you should say that, I just got an email from her. She said, let's get together and do it again. I won't go as crazy this time, she said in the email she just sent me, right?
Fantastic.
So I'm going to try and see if I can get it together on one of the London gigs. Yeah.
Oh, that would be special.
Yeah, to come and sing. Seriously, we don't have to do that frenetic mess. We could do something together serious. She said, we could do something really tuneful and serious this time. I thought, oh, well, you mean we've grown up, you mean?
Yes, well,
You know.
well, she adds that vocal, I suppose, a bit like, you know, the Rolling Stones song, isn't it? It's just a shot away where, you know, I can't remember.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's go for it. You know, we both got on and we're going backwards and forwards between each other. It's a total ad lib, but that's that jazz kind of thing. You know, I mean, things were getting where you could do that.
Yes, and when did you
get a real? Mind you, that band behind me are just pounding. I mean, if you didn't take off on that, you wouldn't go anyway.
No,
you know?
I know. God, you really did have the best groove on that one.
Yeah.
So it was a boiling hot day. Just one thing on that. Where did the hat come from?
Oh, the hat, right? That's Mike Evis's big peeve. Every time I talk to Mike, he says, did you ever get another one of them hats, you know? I can't. I've looked to try to find one. I mean, I'd give anything to find another one. No,
right.
What it was a German Second World War desert issue, desert campaign hat.
Right.
Because in the desert, whether you know desert or not there, is in the daytime you've got these sandstorms, like, you know, that bloody kill you. So that big leather, it's a big thick leather peak on it. Right? It's real long. And you can pull that peak and just look out the corner of it a bit, you know, if you're driving some vehicle, right? And the wool, the sheepskin on the top of it, is at night in the desert, it's freezing.
Yeah,
it drops from 110 degrees down to like 20, you know?
Yes.
So the Germans always had all these incredible uniforms. I mean, well, they were made by the designer Hugo Boss, correct?
Yes.
No, that's who made all the German uniforms, was Boss.
Yes, I know.
You know? Yeah.
Yes.
So he's still one of the biggest designers around. You know, hey, you know.
I know.
They were fantastically made uniforms, right? But that's where I got it in an antique store. I saw it and I fancied it. And then when I looked inside, there's a swastika inside. I went, oh, wow, okay. So I did a research as to exactly what it was, you know.
Yes.
Interesting.
You don't know what happened to it in the end.
Nah, somebody stole it. A lot of stuff, you know. You put things down backstage, or you take something off to wipe your brow, it's gone.
Yes,
You know?
it's always tricky.
I
So
got
then
a lot of stuff, you know.
Yeah, did you then relocate to America to record the River?
Yeah, well, what happened was we were at a point, I'd signed to Ahmet Ertegun at Atlantic Records, okay,
Yes.
to do this album River. And the thing was, we'd been together, the band had been together a while, and ironically, a funny thing started happening was, different things started to happen, is David Lindley got offered, well, Jackson Browne had a #1 record. He's been hanging out with us at England, and he got an album coming out, and the Stock to My Eyes went to #1, right?
Yes.
And he was best friends with David Lindley, right? So, and then Alan White joined Yes.
Yes.
Right, and Eddie Offord was producing the album, right? Who's Yes's producer, right? So all of a sudden, in a period of a week, this all happened. Nobody knew each other's business, really, until we got together and said it. I said, that's how it goes sometimes. So David says, well, what should I do? And I said, look, you can't stop things happening. Things happen, whatever.
Yeah.
And so it was me and Lee Miles left back there again, up in Cambridgeshire, when it was snowing. I remember that, standing there, going, what the hell happened? We had a great group there, and it just evaporated, right? So Ahmet called me. That's the kind of, you see, the kind of people that Ahmet Ertegun is, you won't get that anymore. He calls me up and he goes, yeah, I heard, man. Hey, shit. He said, no, Jackson's on Atlantic. And he said, I heard that Lindy's come over to go on tour with Jackson. He goes, shit. I said, what that man? He said, after all that work, he said, look, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. I said, well, I am. I said, we don't have a group. He said, nah, don't worry about that. He said, you know where you're always going on? You love all these R&B players in the States and these R&B musicians. And he mentioned a bunch of names because, I love to sit and talk to Ahmet. He knows all of them, man.
Yeah.
Well, he started with Ray Charles. Come on. So, and he said, don't worry about it. You and Lee, come on over here. I'll get your house, get you somewhere to live. I'll give you some money. So you don't have to work or do anything for a while. I want you to come and drop in, right? Get out of that snow. You said freezing to death. Damn, man. Get over here, and I'll get you. I says, I'll be checking it out. He says, and Aretha, and there's only one, Aretha. Aretha said Tom Dowd would be a great producer for you. He said, you know Tom Dowd, right? I went, are you kidding? Tom Dowd? He said, yeah, he'd love to do it. He said, Aretha said it's a great idea. What do you think? He said, but he said, chill out for a while, and then we'll get Tom in. We'll get together and hang out a bit, and talk about what to do, pick some songs and some musicians that you like. He said, most of the ones you know. And so I end up with Fred Wesley on trombone, from James Browne.
Yes.
And Blue Mitchell, all these. Now, look out. Now I'm in the middle of all, which is what I loved in the first place. I moved to the States through it, and we start putting together. And I got David Lindley to come in and play on some things. And James Gadsden on drums, and Soko Richardson from Ike and Tina on drums. I'm God. I thought I died and gone to heaven. That was it. Funny how sometimes a mistake can be your salvation.
Yes, and did the band sort of come together really smoothly at that stage?
Oh, yeah. No, the guys turn up. We did a lot of the times we just kick the song around a few times, go and have lunch, come back and cut the track.
Amazing.
That was it. These guys, like you get Gadsden and these people. He was Marvin Gaye's drummer for a long time, So they used to just get somebody having an idea and building on it, and then yeah, that'll do. Let's record it. It's no big deal, right?
Yeah, I mean, the track Dean is just kind of genius, isn't it? I mean, it's such a beautiful.
Yeah, it's great. You know, I mean, all these things are just like, yeah. So some of it we'd cut in England, right? So some of it's with Alan White on drums, and then when we got to the States, some of it's with Soko Richard and James Gadsden. See.
Yes, and
that's drums, you know. All of it is Lee Miles on bass, right? He's the key to the whole thing.
Yes, but then, I mean, it's kind of an interesting time because obviously music's starting to change, and you mentioned Yes there, where the prog rock world happens, and then you had, you know, like Black Sabbath with their kind of debut album, so heavy rock, and then you get the glam rock, and then, you know, there's disco and chart music. So did you sort of find yourself wondering where you fitted into this kind of musical kind of...
At that point when things, you see, like we said, where we got to just before your conversation of get to Traffic and things, and yes, now we got concept albums, we got this, that, okay. Now that's all changing now, like you're saying, and it's going to something totally different. You know, it's going to disco. Now, wait a second here. You know, yes. I mean, I knew Barry Gibb, and I know Maurice, and I knew them guys in the first day when they did that album Holiday.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and you know all those early. That was a great album, that first Bee Gees album, right? But it's nothing to do with when it all went disco. That's a totally different concept. And they're all R&B players, all of that whole thing in there, right?
I know, singing about mining disasters.
When that all happened, that was not my deal at all. I mean, I love R&B, but that disco's not really, that's not that thing.
Yes, absolutely.
So I figured I'll stick to what I'm doing. I'll write songs, how I like to write songs. And I was living up in the mountains here in California. And I liked it up there. It's away from everything. And there was no point living in the city. I mean, I've been just living in the cities all of my life, and then, let's go and do some work, and you go to cities. So you see enough cities. Why go and live in one at that point, right?
Yeah.
I was trying to just get away, because when I was at home, I had a house in the countryside, and I got far more done out there. If I was in town, I'd just end up going out partying or hanging out with somebody, or you don't get anything done, right?
Yes.
Have a lot of fun, but so I lived up in this, and I wrote a whole slew of songs. Some that I still got that I haven't done, you know.
Yeah, because the songs you've got on Seed of Memory.
That's what that was. Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
I mean they're particularly beautiful lyrics and musical arrangement. It's kind of perfection, isn't it? I mean, were you in a particularly focused state of mind? Because there's things like
Well, it was, but I got more focused with working with my friend Graham Nash. You know, I mean, I'd known him since like when we were mentioning in East Anglia, Ramsey Gaiety and Boston Glider. Well, I know Graham from in the Hollies way back there when they had Carousel at number one,
Yes.
So I've known Graham all the way through all that and still do.
Yeah.
Right? So I had all these songs, and then like you just said, how do you fit into this? I said, do you think they'll buy it? I've got all these songs. What am I going to do with them? So I always respected Graham's opinion. He wouldn't lie to me. So I said, look, I've got all these songs. I have no clue if they really are relevant or what. I have no clue. So what do you think? If I send them to you, will you listen to them? And then just give me, I know you'll tell me the truth if I'm barking up the wrong tree or what I'm doing. And he called me back and he said, wow. He said, how about we make an album? I went, what with these songs? He said, absolutely. He said, I love them. Okay, I love the songs, right. Okay. He said, I got a plan already. So he says, I'll produce the album, right? You sing, I'll get you all the musicians you want, and it'll be great. He said, I hear everything, what the songs need, and he says, and I can get you a deal with ABC Dunhill. I went, huh? This is all one conversation, right? He said, yeah, I've already talked to him. No problem. We got it all sorted. when would you like to start on it? I said, well, how about tomorrow? Gee, are you serious? He said, look, come on down. We'll hang out for a bit. And, we'll get into it, and then we'll go from there. And it'll be fun. We'll have a ball, Yes. And we did. I must admit, it was the most fun I've ever had, being in the studio and doing anything. It was a breeze. There was no effort whatsoever. And... and all the musicians and everybody knows each other, so it was just, it was fantastic.
Because the atmosphere and, listening to it, I mean, it reminds me of that kind of those classic, Joni Mitchell period and Carole King and, those kind of very sort of, I don't know, sensitive or deep singer-songwriters.
All those people, Joni and everybody, everybody was around anyway, right? And Crosby. And everybody, and Steve Stills, and so everybody's popping in all the time, and because I known all of them for ages anyway. But it was that atmosphere, and then like Ben Keith on pedal steel, like a couple of them tracks is Ben Keith and Al Perkins, who's a really well-known Nashville pedal steel player, and Ben is your. Neil Young, all the Neil Young stuff, that singular following the vocal thing, singular lines. And then Al Perkins is that symphonic orchestral pedal steel. So it was like having an orchestra. It was really great.
And with the sort of the title track of the album, was that a particularly, what sort of mood were you in at the time when you were writing that? Because it seems like a sense of longing or passing of time or something that seems quite, it's got a romantic...
You mean the song Seed of Memory? Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, when I do it on stage, a lot of the times I'll dedicate it to all our warriors and all the services and people. It's a gentle song of war, but with based on a legend aspect, like the phoenix rising from the ashes, which I think is either Greek or Roman. It's back to Greek mythology of the battle finishes, and out of the fire rises the phoenix of humanity, right? So that's what it's really based on, and because that whole thing of we'll never do it again, there'll never be another war. I look, after the Second World War. And I said, no, just give them a little time. The Germans weren't happy anyway, but it doesn't have to be them. And look what happens,
Yes, well, we always say things like, we'll never forget. And you think,
never do it again, no. And then next thing you know, right?
We'll
the one thing that was ironic is that, our what was it, the Ukrainians, the Russians were celebrating the end of the Second World War and getting rid of the Germans, right? And at the same time, they're shelling the hell out of the Ukraine. I mean, I could end going to myself, I don't know how you get up in the morning and tell yourself that this is a really cool thing to do. Yes. It's really good for relationships around the world.
It's going to end well.
Politics has gone nuts,
Yes, it's not good. But then once that album comes out, and you must have felt like, wow, that is kind of one of a masterpiece, which I think it's probably because of time. People are still discovering it and listening to it, so it does stand up to that, I suppose, critical kind of analysis. But what do you sort of then do next? Because obviously it's quite a few years before.
Well, the thing that was, that it wasn't only the groups changing and things. There was in California, not that in England one would know, is that a lot of this was the beginning of the demise of what was known as called the record company.
Yes.
As it was known, right? Is things were moving after disco. There was an internal thing going on, whereas record companies were going, you know what? The internet, we hadn't really got a full internet, but you could send messages and things. It was getting with the computer, with the message situation and emailing and things, that you could spread the word easily.
Yeah.
In this computer age. And that's right when disco happened, right? Because it's all electronic. So what was happening, the record companies are going, well, you know what, we don't really have to spend all this money supporting artists and backing them up and paying for their tour and doing all this unless we have a guaranteed hit record. If we see that there's a record that's charting and we cannot deny it, then we'll get behind it. Or what we'll do is it developed into not having a record company at all. A band, like the group or the management, making their own record company, making the record, and then using, say, for instance, Universal, Warner Brothers, yada, yada, all of the major labels, using that as a distributor. Because the way it worked before, it was the record company using Warner Communications as a distribution unit. That's how they got everything in the stores, and they own the stores, or that's how things got around. Like most businesses in marketing, anything, right? So all the record company thing just disappeared. So ABC Dunhill, that I'd done Seed America with, were going to fold. The two people, Jerry Rubenstein and I forget the other guy's name. Anyway, they were big business people in LA, big lawyers, right? So they left, and Dunhill folded, and they went on their own. So they didn't start a record company; they just went on their own into business. So I was left with 2 weeks into that record, and it was charting on all different like country stations and R&B stations. It was really up the wall, and they couldn't quite figure out what to do. So they passed it on, and they said, no, we can't. I don't know what it's going to do. And then they sold the company to Irv Azoff, who's the Eagles manager,
right? Yeah,
who was working with MCA at Universal. See, this is that conglomerate move thing where everything was getting folded into things.
Yes, it's complicated.
So I get a call one day from Irv, because I know Irv forever, with the Eagles and all that. So he says, yeah, hi, Terry. He said, yeah, I just got that album of yours, Seed of Mary. He said, I love that album. I said, well, then why don't you put it out? Because now he owns it, because he bought ABC Dunhill.
Yes.
But he wouldn't put it out. That's always puzzled me why he wouldn't put it out. He's saying he loves it, but he likes to keep things on shelves. He also owns the absolute John Coltrane collection, all of it. It's like, I don't know, 60 records, right? I know that because I went in the cupboard and got them all before I left ABC Dunhill. I got the key. I thought, well, I'm going to get something out of this. So I got all of John Coltrane's records, right? Yeah.
So who kind of owns your masters of that album now?
Universal now. MCA. Well, it was MCA, and then but the umbrella company is Universal.
Right.
You'll find if you look down the list there, which I'm sure you know more about this than me anyway, but just so we're on the same page, is Universal own. They're the only existing record company within a distribution unit, right? They're enormous. They've bought most of all the smaller companies up.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
They're
enormous, right?
Yes, it's a very complicated world, isn't this record business? So
it is when you're in the middle of the bugger, right? I mean, so I went, I don't know. And then Capitol offered me a deal. And I thought, well, okay, we did see the memory, and that's that kind of thing. I fancy playing a bit of rock and roll there, so I went totally left and did this full-on blasting rock and roll record, like this Rogue Waves album, right?
Yes.
Which Capitol didn't know what to do with that, so whatever,
Yes.
As long as you do something, And then I thought after that, well, I'll just kick back for a while and write and see what happens next.
Yes. So I mean that's. So was that, just to clarify, was that Herb Albert who you said had your catalogue, or was that somebody else? Maybe?
No, Irv Azoff.
Oh, Azoff.
Yeah, he's the manager of the Eagles.
Right, of course. Yes, of course.
I always joke where people say, "Yeah, I know Irv." I said, "Yeah, you're that big tall guy." And they go, right, yeah. I said, no, you obviously don't know him. He's only about 5'4". You know when people say they know people, you know what I mean? Right?
Yes.
Right. But, I mean, don't get me wrong. I respect Hervé Eastaugh as a manager, like above most. I mean, if you were he was your manager, boy, I'm telling you, you wouldn't, he'd go to bat for you, right?
Yes.
That's the big league, but they're great, and because I'm real good friends with Joe Walsh and Henley and all them, so I know all of the workings, how that all happened. And it's magnificent. A great group came out of it, so it was worth it.
Incredible. Yes. So then how do you... Because you also, I mean, at that stage, I know a few artists got really caught out with it. There was the punk, it was obviously prog rock, and then there was a bit of heavy, and then there was punk, which kind of really confuses people.
Yeah.
And then sort of after, your sort of 79 album, was that Rogue Waves, then it's kind of the 80s. Is it a period that you're sort of residing, you're living in America and just writing and playing kind of...
Yeah, I've been here since, I've been in the state living here since 1972.
Yes. And
but what happened then is I hooked up with a friend I'd known years ago who used to be the entertainment director at Loughborough Loughborough Polytechnic, I think it was. Right? And we would do gigs there all the time, right? And he was the entertainment director. And ironically enough, his brother I'd worked for years, who's Harold Davidson.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know if you're familiar with that.
No,
Harold Davidson was probably the biggest promoter out of London. The Kinks. You name it. I mean, every group. I mean, God, and he represented me too. And his brother, Rob Dickens.
Yes.
Instead of Barry Dickens, the Harold Davidson organisation. The guy's name was Barry Dickens, and he's still around. Right? Great guy, great promoter. Right? He was an agent. Right? And now his younger brother was the entertainment director at Loughborough. Right? So all these years down the road, now we're talking 80s now,
yes.
I get a phone call. I'm living up in Laurel Canyon, right? And I get a phone call, and he says, hello, Terry, it's Rob Dickens. And I go, yeah, Rob Dickens. I know that name. I feel terrible. God, I know that name so well. Why do I hear it? He says, yeah, you don't remember, do you? No. He says, I'm the guy that used to pay you all that money at Loughborough University. And I went, but Loughborough, now it clicked, right?
Yes.
I said, you mean Barry's brother? He says, I don't talk to Barry. I went, oh, God, here we go with that brother shit now, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I said, God, how are you doing? He said, well, I called you. Do you want to make an album? I went, huh? Okay, yeah, I'd like to. He said, do you have any material? I said, I have a lot of material. I've got a studio in the house up here in Logan, and I play a bunch of tunes. If you like them, we'll go. He said, I'll come up. And I said, well, when do you want to come up? He said, how about now? I said, well, where are you? He says, I'm on Sunset Boulevard at the bottom of Laurel Canyon. I went, oh, well, come on up. He said, right, okay. So next thing, 15 minutes later, he knocks on the door. We sit down, I play him a bunch of songs. He said, piece of cake. Let's do an album. He's the head of Warner Brothers in England.
Right.
I go, oh, you're not at Loughborough now, eh? He said, no, I graduated.
Yes.
Right. And that was back in the 70s, right? Early 70s, late 60s, 70s, right? And all that time, and he said, I've always had a bee in my bonnet. I always wanted to make a record for you, for whatever. He said, okay, hits and that and everything, and I know, and all that, and disco, and now it's boy bands, right? I said, well, I know, I'm too old to be in a boy band. No, that's not gonna happen. I don't have any brothers, and I'm an only child, so it ain't going to work. Right? And so he said, well, look, get a producer. And the one thing he did, he wanted Trevor Horn because of the techno aspect, and now we're in this age, we're in the techno aspect now, we're going to make a digital record. So he said, do you have anything about... I said, look, you're the boss. You're going to put all this money up. I'll go with you. Yeah, I'm up for making a digital album. As long as I'm singing and they're not going to just hit everything I do with the vocoder, I'll be all right, you know. Now it's a bit dangerous because you sing 4 notes and they put you through that machine to pitch it, you know.
Yes.
So anyway, we made the album, The Driver, you know, which was a good album, you know, but for some reason that they didn't get on that. We had one song they were going to put out as a single, The Whole of the Moon, the Water Boys, because it never charted, but it was played like hell on the radio, as you know, right?
Yes.
When it was out, but it never was a hit. So he'd pick songs that, you know, were always played a lot, but never charted. That way, you got that potential there. So we just got about to release it as a single. Yeah, we're back to singles again, aren't we? We've done a full circle here, right? You know. So we're about to put it out, and Chrysalis, right, got wind of that we were going to put it out as a single on Warner Brothers, and they rush released a best of hits album of the Water Boys and put Hold the Moon out as a single. Right.
Yes.
Somebody fucking said it, you know. I don't know who said it, but Terry Ellis, that's who it was. Chrysalis, right? Who I know real well, but that don't help, you know. And they put it out, and it went to number 2 in the charts. But that's the record business, you know.
God, that is frustrating.
I'm going to say, if you don't expect all these things happening, for God's sake, don't even get it started. Don't even get involved in it.
I know. It's kind of...
You never know. I know all these sound like tragedies, but they're actually building blocks on who you are. And
yes.
What you do is what you do, you know. I mean, it's not... Nothing's really bad, you know.
It's just yes.
It's all activity.
Yeah, but you did another cover, you know, Give Me Some Lovin', which was also on a soundtrack, the Tom Cruise
That's right.
movie.
Yeah.
Days of Thunder. So there was a little bit of that.
Yeah, I know. Well, that all went wrong for Tom Cruise. I mean, he was pissed off about that because he had this big thing. I don't know because he's a Scientologist. I don't know if it's anything to do with that, but he had this big thing when that's right when AIDS was being really misunderstood, you know.
Yes.
Is that, you could shake somebody's hand and get AIDS, right, you know. Everybody got the shit. Everybody was getting really nervous, right? So, and he was trying to tell a story, but it didn't work. I don't know if you know the story. It was a race car driver who got in a really bad accident on the, you know, as you can, going 200 miles an hour, right, you know. Poor guy, and he was really messed up, and they had to give him a blood transfusion, and the blood was contaminated, and he got AIDS.
Right.
And the trouble was, everybody, you know, all those firecracker guys from Atlanta and all them guys on their hardcore Top Fuel or, you know, Formula One or formula cars, you know what I'm saying, right?
Yes.
Stock cars, right? They were stock cars. All of them are like good old boys, you know, and, you know, there wasn't any understanding about AIDS. So they all like looking at this car driver like, hey, yeah, sure, right, you had the blood transfusion, right, all right. Yeah, and it was really messed his life up. And here he is trying to recover from a bloody serious car accident. So Tom got hold of this whole thing, and that's what the movie was about. But when it got to they filmed it, did spent millions of dollars as they usually do. Got Hans Zimmer doing all the music, right? So when they finally got to promoting the film, I think it was Universal. Yeah, it was Universal. Universal turned around, or Warner Brothers, I forget which way. They turned around and went, nah, I don't think so. The way it was going with AIDS, they weren't going to be able to sell the public on it.
Right, yes.
It just wasn't going to happen. So they literally, this can happen too. It's not just albums. They killed the movie.
Yes.
They shut it down. See? So it was funny because I had some interesting conversations with Hans Zimmer about it because we spent a bunch of time, there's a couple of tracks on that album. The last track on the album, called Days of Thunder, is I wrote the night before. I wrote all the lyrics and the tune over some incidental music that Hans had written. It's the most expensive backing track I've ever heard in my life. Trevor Horn came up. He said, "Look, this is just a backing track that Hans put together. It's not mixed. It's just And he puts it on my big speakers. I left the planet. I went, You are pulling my leg, right? Just an unmixed backing track." I said, "Holy shit." I said, "I've never heard anything like that." He said, "Yeah, well, you got to write a song on it." So I stayed up all night, wrote the song, went in the studio the next day and cut it. So if you listen to that album, that's what it is. I did it the next day, right? I'm really proud of it because it's a balls-to-the-wall song, and it's got all these changes. And I really nailed it, right? And Hans, he was dancing in the studio. He was having a ball. So it was great. It was good just for the fact of working with these real pros like Hans Zimmer and just the association with Hans, who's a real pro,
Yes.
I mean, it's just like the Mars project in that studio. You cannot believe the equipment. I mean, it's NASA. I walked into the booth, and it's up to the ceiling and rack gear and computers. I've never seen so much digital equipment. It's just like the Apollo mission. It's unbelievable. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then
I know. It's a whole other world, you see. So, I mean, God, now all that shit's got smaller.
I know, you can do it all on your phone, can't you? But then
you know what I mean? That's scary. I actually like to see it all stacked to the ceiling. I like
yes.
that.
You're not
it's a bit hot, but there you go,
Yes, you're not going to accidentally sort of, I don't know, do something that someone, yes, you can see knobs and things flashing. But then in the 90s...
flashing, coloured, I love coloured lights, Jesus, like the whole place was like the biggest Christmas tree you ever saw in your life.
Yeah.
And between there and Sam Records down on Portobello Road with Trevor Horn, Yes. I mean, that's another one that's great. I loved it when George Michael was in there. We were doing the driver and we were mixing down there and Sam. And George had one of the other rooms and him and I think his engineer was called Juju, I think his name. Yeah, God, I always remember all these guys. They're fucking great, right? And God, I went in there. He invited me to come and listen to something one time. So I go in there and there's another Mars project, right? And they got sort of like 6-8, it's a small room, but they got 6 or 8 fans trying to cool all this equipment off, right? Yeah.
Blimey.
And George is freaking everything. I mean, he was brilliant, George, Mike. I tell you, man. I mean, he designed all them records too. I mean, they're beautiful records. He just what a gentleman. A lovely guy.
Yes. Well, I think around that time he was doing that album. I think it was it Listen Without Prejudice or something like that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
He might have been.
He did that. He was doing Father Figure, right?
Right.
And he was explaining to me that the way he had it originally, it was like, all I wanted was to buy the bigger pocket in my life. You know that, right? In a dance thing. And then he says, you know what? It didn't feel right to me. The emotion's wrong. And he's explaining to me the song and all this. And I'm sitting there listening to him. He says, come and have a listen, see what I've done now. And all I want is the butter. And he totally re-recorded the whole song and animated the whole thing. I thought, he played me the original. And I went, holy shit, it's a totally different song. He said, no, it's the same song. I said, no, what I mean is the emotion is totally different. He said, great, yes, good, yeah. Right.
Yes, no, I think that was his, the Faith album. That was
Faith, yeah.
Faith,
right. Okay.
Amazing man. So then in the 90s, you do a lot of touring with various kind of people like, was it Mick Taylor and...
Oh, yeah, right, yeah.
So what was...
we do. Me and Mick get on. We're going to do some other things here. We're going to do this big documentary movie thing that's coming up here. I got a whole company. Well, actually, it's Johnny Depp's company. He has a film company and a movie company and a publishing company things. And we're really good. We've been really good friends way before this nonsense going on. It's got nothing to do with anything, But me, him, and Joe Perry we're working together on an album of Joe Perry's, right? And,
excellent.
And Johnny kept saying, he said, because we sit, like me and you, we sit telling stories, and he says, have you ever thought of doing a book or a movie or something? I said, well, yeah, sure. It'd be great if we could get some backing to do it. And he goes, so later on, we finished the album, and then, I don't know, about a year later, he says, you know what? I want to put this together. I've been thinking about it. I'll put it through our company, through the film company, and we'll make he says, I think instead we'll do the book later on. You can do the book, but we'll do a movie documentary, but more of a movie.
Yes.
And we'll get together on it for ideas and design. He said, because I got a whole load of ideas. This is Johnny, right? He's all involved in it now. He says, and I've got some great ideas of things we can do and make it a movie, not just a documentary, He says, not just having acted people in it, but how you can work pieces of footage and morph things and do all sorts of stuff now, right? I went, Jesus Christ, really? So anyway, we got one backer that's totally in, and it's looking like it's all coming down at the end of this. Well, hopefully, touch wood, in a couple of months.
Blimey,
we're going to start on it.
That is going to be very exciting.
Oh, it'll be it's pretty spectacular. Thing is, John's all into it. He's like, God, he's got all these ideas and that, and he's very, very, he's a great actor. I mean, he's got some great ideas and things. So, and he wants to do all this. So, I'm very flattered. It's great.
Well, absolutely,
he's a lovely guy to work with.
And I guess
all that violent thing. When that all started, I met Amber, his wife, when we started working together. Yeah, she's a boppy little thing and everything else. But all the anger thing, I couldn't quite get that. I can see how she probably went off and, pissed him off. But, I mean, it's like, welcome to the club. I mean, if that didn't happen to him, I mean, it wouldn't be a guy. The thing is with John, though, wherever he goes, it reminds me of like the Errol Flynn syndrome. He's such a chick magnet, it's ridiculous. So wherever he goes, he's very good. He's very nice with it. So. It's just one of them things that happens, and luckily enough, he's got out of it now, so he can get back to playing guitar.
Yes, I think he was with Jeff Beck, wasn't he? Quite last week.
Yeah, I know, Jeff. It's great. Like you see, all the guys and everybody backs him up because they're all probably going, oh yeah, we all have one of them, you're all due one of those at least. Just don't get two or three. Really.
So how do you? I mean, with your kind of career, both on the music front, keeping hold of your music and sort of, do you sort of have to just let go of that? Though occasionally you get the odd royalty check or someone wants to cover your record, and do you have ownership of the music now?
Yeah, I own most of my publishing now. Yeah.
So that must be a huge relief. And you must...
Yeah, well, it's a relief as and when, it's going to be interesting when we get to doing, like, the movie and doing things, and you do. I'm not, put it this way, I'm not beholden to anybody that's going to come banging on the door, oh, you didn't pay us, and all that nonsense,
Yes. And then...
It's just the first two albums, but then that's a long while ago, and all those songs, and that's different. But... There's things coming out in a couple of TV movies here in the next couple of months of stuff that I own that'll be interesting.
Yeah. So to keep the hustle going, was it your kind of playing live that sort of kept everything kind of?
Yeah. Well, I love playing live. I mean, I like people. Some people are sort of a bit funny. They don't like to play live, right? They don't like. They're more personalised. I remember. I couldn't believe it actually with Joni Mitchell. Joan, who was the biggest sweetheart in the world, probably one of the best musicians I've ever had the fortune of meeting. God, you sit and listen to it. She's sitting in front of you playing one guitar and singing. No mic, nothing. Just sitting on your couch, just playing. And she's all nice. And she'll play you a song and plays this song. And your life's changed. It's like she tells you a story, and you're sitting there either crying or just you're lost for words. It's like, oh, You don't say, "Did you write that?" because she just thought it. It's her. When she sings this, it's her. But now, here comes the strange one. There's a good mutual friend of ours, and Graham's too, called Joel Bernstein. Joel Bernstein's always been friends with Joni since he came from Canada. Right? Yeah. So Joni not only plays in different tunings on guitar, she makes up her own tunings.
Yes.
You get a load of that. She did it to my guitar at a gig one night. We were playing in LA. She came to gigs. She's sitting in the dressing room playing my guitar and tuned it. God knows, some tuning. And then I went to go and do an acoustic song, and I couldn't even get a chord out of it. I don't know what she did to it, right? So I left it in that tuning. I went and did it electric, and then later I said to her, "What the hell is that?" "Oh, that's one of my tunings," right? I went, "Oh, okay," because I'm just working on it. Now, she plays it, it sounds fine. So I took it home. I thought, okay. So the next day I got the guitar out, and here it is. And it took 3 days. I could not make a song up. I could not play anything I knew. I couldn't get anything out of it, right? No, unbelievable. So Joel, they suddenly turned around when she became really popular, right? And asked her to do the Dick Cavett show, which is a big talk show here.
Yeah.
Like Johnny Carson thing, And we know Dick Cavett is. Anyway, so they asked her to do the show. It's very important, and he wanted you to do it solo. And she freaks. And so Joel said to me, he said, why are you freaking? She says, "I don't remember all those tunings." It's all those records and tunes that you've heard that you love, right? She don't remember, right? And the show's on tomorrow. Right? And all this. So Joel says, "Don't worry about it." I had a funny feeling. I wrote all of these tunings down. He'd written them all down when she was doing all these songs in the studio, right?
God, that's lucky.
Yeah, there's a book out. If you're so interested, it's a great thing to have. It's the chord book of Joni Mitchell music, Joni Mitchell's music, and Joel wrote the book. It's Joel Bernstein, so you'll know who the right one. And it's got all the tunings as well. Otherwise, you'd never be able to play the songs.
God, how weird! That's right? Extraordinary. Yes.
Yeah, totally extra. I've never known anybody. I knew Richie Havens really well, who plays in raga tunings, very strange Indian tunings and things. He taught me a lot, but nothing like making your own tunings up. It's just, even David Crosby looks sideways. I don't know what she's doing. Leave her alone.
Yes.
When do the gigs, she hates to do gigs, not just because of that. She's totally nervous about. She doesn't like playing things to audiences.
No, I think after
she'll sit on a couch and sit there and play one-on-one or to a couple of people sitting there. But when it's a lot, she hates doing concerts. I mean, when she's and Barbra Streisand apparently is the same way. She has a bit until she gets on the stage. Right?
Yes, I know, it's weird, isn't it?
I bless those people.
I know.
It's really they got such a gift, and it's different for everybody.
So, sort of with sort of coming up, obviously in a couple of weeks' time, you're back in the UK with about 6 or 7 dates, and then you do New York and New Jersey as well in August. I mean, do you also have other regular spots as well in LA that you play on?
Well, we had. I had a bunch of things going on before that COVID thing hit, and I'm just starting to get them back. There's a couple of casinos out here that are bigger here that are really good gigs. And then when I get back, I got a couple of different things that we want to do. And there's some very interesting gigs out here, especially in the desert.
Yes.
There's a big cowboy bar up in called Pappy and Harriet's. So it's famous out here. People come from Sweden to it. I played it one, and it's like 300-400 people, right? And these couple come up to me, look at me. I thought they look extremely healthy. Look at them, all blonde and healthy and tan, and wow. But that, that snow tan's a lot different than laying on the beach, right?
Yes.
So they come over and he said, "Teddy, it's good to see you. We came to see you." And I said, "Oh, where are you from?" And he said, "Sweden." And I went, "Oh, you're here on holiday then?" He goes, "No, we just came over to see you." I said, "What? You came from Sweden?" He says, "Well, we thought of coming, to either to New York." He said, "We thought we'd come. Where should we go?" And we saw you were playing, so we came to see you play because you haven't played in Europe in a while, and which is true. I hadn't, you see. I thought, Jesus Christ, But if you saw it up there, it's all Gene Autry country. He used to own all the property, right, and shoot all those movies we used to watch when we were kids. Those westerns,
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. Fistful of
That's
Dollars.
where they shot them all up there, right?
Okay, yes.
Yeah, oh, it's fantastic countryside, all the boulders and the man. Oh, it's just, I love it out. It's only 20 minutes from me here. It's just up in the hills,
Amazing. Yes, well,
Yeah.
I've just been looking at they've got some amazing gigs coming up as well, haven't they? They've got...
Yeah. There's some great ones. This tour is going to be really good, going around a lot of the places. Glastonbury, the Jazz Cafe is going to be like, I love it there. That's great.
Yes, absolutely. And if you could have just said something, kind of whispered something to your, I was going to say 16 or 18, but 15, 16-year-old self, is there anything that you'd have thought, yeah, that would have been quite handy, or that would have been a bit of good advice, even if you had ignored it? I just wondered if there was anything that you thought, yeah, that would have been really sensible.
Well, what do you mean? What, something you should have done, you mean?
Well, with the decades, the years and decades of kind of experience and kind of learning and sort of kind of developing.
Right, yeah.
I just wondered if there was a few...
What would have been good? Yeah.
What would have been
to
like...
be in a group with Jeff Beck, that would have been good. I always thought that. Every time I see him, I say, "God, we should do something." He says, "Yeah, we should." I don't know as yet. We haven't, but I love Jeff Beck. That's one thing.
I know when David. Yeah. Oh God, I was going to. Sorry, I interrupted you there.
No, you didn't. No, go on. It's a conversation.
Because I was going to say, because I know David Bowie was like, he's always going, "Oh yeah, I really wanted my Jeff Beck, and I got Mick Ronson." So with Jeff.
Yeah, did he? I didn't hear that one yet. Yes. Oh yeah, Mick Ronson. Well, bloody hell, careful what you wish for, really. Mick was a bloody lunatic, he's a great guitar player, but what a screwball. Boy, he was really wild boy, right?
Right, yeah.
But when you listen to his playing, that's how he plays, so that's what you get.
So was Jeff Beck particularly, was he up there with Jimi Hendrix in sort of... The few. I mean, Jimmy stands unto himself. I mean, I've never heard... No, Jeff would agree. He said, "I've never heard anything like that in my life." He just stands apart from everything. But the thing with Jeff that I love, and I always did, he's my favourite guitar player as a virtuoso guitar player. He took what all the guitar players, Eric, Jimmy Page, everybody, and Mick Taylor, and he took it to another place. I mean, all of these guitar players have a very significant style of their own, playing blues licks, pentatonic, playing that kind of thing, from Elmore James or from whatever, Buddy Guy and all that. And B.B. King, taking that framework and then taking it somewhere else, right? Yes.
And with different amps and that. But Jeff kept slowly recreating it and reinventing it to the point where I saw him in New Orleans on stage and it blew my mind. And he's out there playing La Traviata by Verdi. I'm standing there going, that's La Traviata by Verdi. And here he is with boots on and shades and he's leaning back playing opera. I'm going, yeah. Now there's few people that have the mind and the actual technique to be able to voice all those notes like an opera singer, right? Just phenomenal. I mean, it just blew my mind. I couldn't believe it,
Yes.
Something else.
It was good. I mean, on the guitar playing front, did you think that when the Rolling Stones got Mick Taylor, that was their kind of golden period?
Interesting, you see, because I worked with them when it was Brian,
yes.
right? First of all, and that group which we'd grown up on, was a rhythm group. How do I describe it? It's like this. If you listen to them early records, they go back, or do get that, or da or boom. You can hear it's like an engine moving, right?
Yes.
That was the technique. And how I don't know how they. I sit watching them every night to try and see if I could get that thing down with my eyes closed or without, or watch them individually and see, well, what's he doing and what's he doing, but. It's too slick to figure out. It's a natural thing, right? Brian Jones was one of the best rhythm guitar players you ever heard in your life, right?
Yeah.
When you watch him, he's playing a very unusual sort of rhythm thing, right? That goes with, and then Keith goes against it. So that was that. Then when Mick Taylor joined, it totally changed. This is a totally different group now. It's totally different, and it's not the rhythm group anymore. Now it's Keith playing more rhythm, chunky chords, playing the chord structures of things, and Mick Taylor playing against him, like with Brown Sugar or something like that, but they're playing double parts together.
Yes.
A lot of times they'll be playing the same licks, but counterpoint, right?
Yeah.
Very, very, a whole other different deal. It's like twin solos. A lot of the times, you got two people playing twin solo things, right? And not only that, Mick Taylor's a fantastic lead player. We did something a few years ago. What was it, about 6 years ago? It was a tribute to Jack Bruce at Shepherd's Bush Empire.
Right.
And Jack's son, very, very flatteringly, invited me to go over and do a song. In the show, and he said, you know what? He said, do you know where Mick Taylor is? I said, yeah, I know where he is. I said, he's in Holland. He says, do you think he would come over and play? I said, well, yeah, I'll give him a call and see, right?
Yes.
And so I called up Mick, and he said, oh, that'd be great. And he says he wants us to play a song, and so Mick says, well, what song do you want to do? I said, well, he wants us to do White Room, right? And he went, oh, I like that one. I said, you know that song? He said, no, but I'll go upstairs and learn it. I'll go upstairs. He's serious, Mick. It's the way he is, right? He hates rehearsing. He always says to me, why ruin a good gig by rehearsing?
Yes.
I said, yeah, well, that's easy to say when somebody plays as good as you do. But I said, I can't quite get away with that,
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
Not only that, I'm singing too. So just get back on your chair.
Yeah.
So anyway, we got over there. He came over, and everybody was chuffed. We get to doing White Room. When it comes to the ultimate solo, that Eric does, it goes on and on and on. Mick, off the top of his head, he got it figured out mentally. He started off doing Eric Clapton. It's just identical to Eric. Just those same licks, like in White Room. Then it went into Hendrix. Out of blue, and he went into it he sounded just like Jimmy, right? And I went, I'm singing, so I've got nothing to do with this, right? And I'm standing there watching him, and he's looking at me winking, right? And he goes into like Jimi Hendrix for a while, and then he comes out of that, goes into that Mick Taylor bottleneck thing, like in the Stones, right?
Yes.
And I went, you bugger you. It was an anthology of guitar players in a solo. Very smart, right?
Yes.
Very, very, very clever.
Was he one of the most, was he one of the most natural guitar players you ever knew or met?
Yeah, Mick, yeah. He played the phone book, Yeah, Mick's a gem. He's one of the master stylists of a guitar, natural-wise, in England. He hates rehearsing. He's like a jazz musician. It's like if he's in the mood, you get him in the right mood, and the night's good, and you get on, and everything's working, and things. He's just unbelievable, right?
Amazing. That is kind of amazing.
It doesn't matter what guitar it is. It doesn't have to be a 57 Les Paul, I mean, you'll pick up some old bloody Italian guitar or something that's, some piece of something that's not good at all, and he'll go, this isn't bad. He starts playing it, and of course it sounds like him. People are watching going, oh, wow, I've got to get me one of them guitars. No, you don't. No, you don't. It's not going to sound like that when you get one. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's the way he is. Some people don't sound like that good on it. They got their own setup,
Yes.
He'll just pick anything up, make it. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and that was that question. For, if you could have said something to your younger self, I can't remember what your first point was actually. Right. Was there anything? was there anything else? There was I don't know. What was your first point? I can't remember. Yes. So if you could have whispered something to your sort of younger self starting out, was there? Oh, you said about playing with Jeff Beck. That's it.
Yeah, I said that one. What else was there? The other one. I don't know. Are you that thing? Or you wish you could have done this or done that or everything? No, everything has a purpose to it. I think in life,
Yeah.
And I did. Sometimes I wish that the record companies would have been a little more attentive to things and got behind something a bit, and maybe. But then sometimes it's if you have a powerful manager that threatens them, then it works. Or but. Maybe I would like to have been with Atlantic Records a bit earlier when before Ahmet was deciding to go on the chairman of the board on Warner Communications. He was leaving Atlantic Records. He'd had enough of being with the company. So I caught him on the back stroke of that thing. There's all sorts of things like that. And who else was it? I'd love to have seen Aretha before she passed. I didn't get to see her. I haven't seen her in years, and I talked to her on the phone, and she threatened me. She said, "Man, when I play L.A. again, you better be there. Oh, I ain't talking to you again."
Oh wow!
I like to be threatened to go to a gig. It was a practice, man.
It always helps. But
there's all sorts of things. But God bless us all. It's great to just we can still go and play some gigs, and hopefully everybody's into it, and and has a good time. That's the main thing.
Yes, and I think hopefully the month of June is going to be lovely, and you'll have a great a great time back in the UK.
Oh God, I see a whole bunch of the bloody casting. You never know who's going to turn up.
Yes.
I got a great call last night for who's coming. I went, it's starting to realise I'm doing the gig now. He's Spiky from the Choir Boys, right? So, that'll liven it up. So, Spiky says he's coming to the gig. I says, yeah, that's all right. I'll put barbed wire around. Don't worry. Yeah. Have some. Would you prefer barbed wire or razor wire? Which one would you prefer?
Yes, it's a classic. It's a classic. Well, look,
classic. But there you go. We have a joke and everything. He calls me his father. He's on stage one night. He says, "My father's here tonight," and I'm listening to him. He's going, "No." He said, "My father taught me everything I know, and all his music, and he's been so supportive, and he's doing all this." And he said, "Dad, come up here and do a song with me." And I look behind, and everybody's looking at me, and I go, "Oh yeah, okay, I get it." So he meant me, his father. I said, "Yeah." God, I said, if you had a kid like this, you would have drowned at birth, I tell you.
Excellent, yes, I can imagine.
Oh, dear.
The last.
But I love it. You see, there you go. We're all still in the game, and that it's great.
Well, absolutely. And if you're doing Glastonbury,
these are all crazy. They're like as crazy like we all were when we started. So it don't make any difference. You're still crazy.
Yes, absolutely. Well, look, Terry, thank you ever so much. This has been amazing, actually. And
good.
This has been fantastic. And if you want, I can always send you the link, and then you can always put it on your, I don't know, web.
So is this recorded, or are you going to write it up? Or
well, it's recorded, so I can always send you just the straight link, and then you can just add it to your kind of, you've got archive interviews and stuff. Right. You can always put it on that.
That's all right. Yeah. And then we can do it that way, yeah.
You can do it that way. But look, all the best for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Frank. Yeah, lovely conversation. There you
go. Thanks ever so much, Terry.
We covered a couple of them hills out there, really. Yeah.
It's been good. It's been really. But
well,
again,
if you're around, come to the gig if you're in town.
Yeah, and I have to, and that would be amazing. And also, I do love your albums. I mean, I love a lot of your work, but Seed of Memory is just stunning. It's just one of those even one goes back to, and I can see why people keep discovering it for themselves because it's
yeah. A pretty... You see, I'm trying to arrange to put it out again because me and Graham have been doing a couple of songs again together.
Right.
A couple of new different things, So we've been working. I'm going to see him probably when I go in. Let me see. In late July, when I go to New York and do them gigs and that, because he lives in New York now, I'll probably, he usually comes to the gig if he's not on tour, because he's always out there. But that would be great. We get together again. I mean, I'd love to work with him again. It's just a piece of cake.
Yes, and it's great because I just looked at your Spotify, and you get 136,000 listeners a month. So there you go.
Do I? Oh, God.
So that'll probably give you about 3 pence, but anyway.
Well, good. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I don't rely on that. Yeah,
but
after this interview, that'll cut that down.
But look at that. I mean, so it's interesting that actually 136. 600.
That's good.
Monthly. So yes, people.
Yeah, monthly. Yeah, I know.
Monthly. So
see, all we got to do is we just put some things. This movie thing is I got so many. I can't tell you now, but. Obviously, but I got some great ideas of what we can do with it to make it a movie that you're watching it going, and all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, what's going on? It's like you suddenly feel like you're in it,
Yes. Oh yes, that was it. You do an amazing version for that Lorraine Ellison.
Lorraine Ellison, yes, Stay With Me, Baby, yeah.
Yes, your vocal on that. Can you remember recording that song?
Oh, yeah, I remember doing it. I keep saying I'm going to do it again, but, I mean, that key was just a bit. I mean, I figured all the keys out. You could drop it a bit. I love the song. It's just, you really need a keyboard to do it with. And we don't have a keyboard in the band this time, but if you do it with piano or organ or something, you get that swelling drama situation of it, right?
Yes, I know.
When it works on guitar, sort of, but I don't. I sort of sometimes think, well, if I had a stack of Marshalls, that might do it.
Yes, it would be good. Anyway, look, I'll let you enjoy your afternoon.
All right, man.
Take care. Good. Thanks ever so much, Terry. Take care.
Thanks very much, man. God bless you, and thanks for the opportunity. That was nice talking to you, man.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, hopefully catch you again. See you later. Bye.
In a bit, man. Okay.
Bye-bye. And that, dear listener, is me in conversation with Terry Reid to find out more about his life. He has a good website as well, so you can find out more about his live dates and various other activities. So, yes, if you want to contact me, you can on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. That's C86 Show. Keep it positive and nice. Otherwise, don't bother. And all these have been archived. You can find those on Spotify, iTunes, Podbean. Just do C86 Show again. Anyway, have a great night or week. Stay safe.